Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this week's video on the Spark Your Speaking channel. Today I'm going to talk about 3 ways to determine what your story is. My name is Kathy Lee and I'm your public speaking coach. In the last video, I taught you 3 reasons why your story is powerful and how it can elevate your presentation. If you haven't watched it yet, make sure you do. I share some very important insights that will help you as you're preparing for your talk. So now that you understand why storytelling is so crucial to your success as a public speaker, you may be asking, well, Kathy, what is my story? Do I even have a story? Without a doubt, I'm telling you that yes, you do have a story. I've been a TV journalist for more than a decade, and really this profession relies on stories. And every single person that I've met or spoken to has a story. Every single one. You just need to reframe your mind and realize that you do, and I'm here to help you. How do we determine your story? Well, number 1, highlight the adversities you faced. Ask yourself, has there been a time in your life where you struggled and overcame something, or you're in the process of overcoming? If you answered no to this, then my friend, you either haven't lived life or you were very, very lucky to have never faced obstacles. And if you've never faced obstacles, you make up a teeny tiny percentage of the people on this earth. I actually refuse to accept no for an answer. I know that each and every one of you has faced adversity before, and some of you might have faced multiple adversities in your life. Now the thing is, when I say adversities, I don't mean that it has to be so completely tragic. I'm just saying anything that you've struggled with. You can take that little nugget and you can turn that into something that might help others. If your adversity is something that is tragic, perhaps that's a story that you might share. But again, it doesn't have to be so dramatic. It could be just everyday things that you might struggle with. Once you've determined what adversities you face, it can't just stop there. You can't just talk about when you've struggled. You need to be able to balance that by how you were able to overcome that adversity. Because that perseverance and triumph is going to be the gift that you give to someone else. They'll be inspired by the fact that you never gave up, and it could give them the push that they need to keep going. So the first part of your story of determining it is, when have I struggled? That tells your audience, whoever your audience is that you're just like them. You're not perfect, okay? Then the second half of that part is going to be how you were able to overcome it. And that is going to give your audience the inspiration that they need. So you need the 2 parts, and they have to be balanced. Number 2, make sure your story is relevant to your presentation. Now that you've come up with many stories that you can include in your presentation, you need to figure out which ones to actually tell and which ones to leave behind or save for a different talk. It makes no sense to tell one adversity story after another if it doesn't relate to your content. If you do that, you'll end up confusing your audience or losing them, and worse off, your stories will lose momentum. When you're preparing your presentation or content, take a look at what the theme of your talk is going to be. So let's use the example of the successful entrepreneur who is giving a keynote speech at a business conference. Again, okay? I know I initially said that envision yourself as that, but let's create a fictitious person. That person has struggled so much in more than a decade to finally find success in the business world. It would make sense for that person to engage the audience and inspire them with a story or stories about a time in their life when they wanted to give up, but they kept going. Their story needs to relate to their talk, which I'll assume is something about resilience. Maybe, as an example, one of the times that person wanted to give up was when something unfortunate like a flood or something happened at their store. They sunk all this money to finally get it running, and then a pipe burst and flooded everything, and the building needed to be gutted. That would be an incredible story to tell that is relevant to the talk, and then that person would get into the details of how they persevered. So make sure that when you are presenting whatever story you end up telling your audience, that it makes sense in the context of your talk, okay? Now, before we get to my 3rd point, again, just thank you for tuning in. Remember to join our public speaking community. Hit the subscribe button below to continue to get weekly free public speaking training videos. Again, they're all free. My last point is, remember that your story doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. And I kind of teased this in the first point. The last example I gave was quite dramatic, the one about the store flooding and our fictional business person losing everything after they sunk everything into it. And often it seems that lots of people we view as successful who have shared their story have stories that are so extreme and heartbreaking. Some of you might have faced some kind of adversity, but it might not be anywhere near as tragic. So you might be sitting there and thinking, if I don't have a dramatic story, then is my story going to be powerful? And the answer is yes. Although I've given some really extreme examples, I did that just to highlight and hammer home the message that I'm trying to tell you guys. But it's not necessary for you to have experienced the same level of tragedy to be a powerful speaker. And the reason why is because the average person has not experienced major tragedy in their life either. It only happens to a small percentage of people, which is why you still have a high chance of connecting them with your story of adversity. And even the people who have experienced a lot of tragedy, in their life, they can still resonate with the less adverse stories or experiences that you might have gone through. So let's use a business person as an example again, but this time let's replace their store flooding story with something else that could be viewed as an obstacle to success. Let's use the example of burnout or lack of motivation. Because building a business is hard work. Ask anyone who is an entrepreneur. You must be on your grind all the time. And more often than not, you will face roadblocks along the way. There will be times you feel burnt out or lack the motivation to keep going because you feel there won't be a payoff at the end. Perhaps our fictional business person talks about that and shares the times when they felt that way and strategies that they've implemented to keep that drive going. I don't know about you, but I feel I can totally resonate very well with being burnt out or not having motivation. Some days it's hard to get out of bed and keep on your grind. This is something that many people can relate to. And again, you can see the story doesn't have to be about tragedy to be effective, okay? Well, that's all for today, everyone. Just to recap, 3 ways to determine your story or highlight the adversities you faced. Make sure your story is relevant to your presentation. And also remember that your story doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. If you like this video and you found it helpful, remember to hit the like button below and share it so others can learn as well. If you have any questions or topic ideas, feel free to leave a comment below. And if you'd like to learn more about the other public speaking programs that I have to offer, make sure to hit up my website, sparkyourspeaking.com. See you next week.